Alright guys, back at you again. So, we all know that one of the most dominating topwater baits in the last 2 years probably has been plopper style baits. Whether you're throwing River to Sea or you're throwing the Chapo by Berkley, these two baits have absolutely taken the topwater fishing from summertime to fall. A lot of times in the early spring, I'm not so much throwing this, but when the water starts getting warmer, you get the wolfpack bass and you get the fall bass that come up feeding on topwater, you're going to end up using these baits a lot. And one of the biggest problems, no doubt, is how many fish you miss on them. It's probably a 50% bait, okay? What I mean by that is you're going to miss probably 50% of the bites you get. So 5 out of 10 you might catch, the other 5 who knows what's happening. So, but I'm about to show you, and I can't believe I'm spilling the beans, but I'm going to show you what I do to improve my catch ratio on these ploppers. So, step number 1, pretty simple and easy. No matter whether you're throwing the Chapo from Berkley or the River to Sea Whopper Plopper, instantly take off the O-rings and the factory hooks they have on them. The reason I'm saying to take off the O-ring, we're going to lighten this bait up a little bit, and you'll understand why here in a second. But O-rings and factory hooks come completely off. They're undersized. The O-rings are oversized, so you really don't need that extra weight, and you actually need to get a bigger hook. Step number 2, we're going to actually use lighter O-rings, okay? So from the factory to this style O-ring, which I think is a size number 2, we're actually going to use lighter O-rings. Now follow me. We're actually going to install a number 1 treble hook to the front eye, a number 2 treble hook to the middle eye, and we're going to leave this free for right now. So, like I said, my choice is going to be Gamakatsu number 2 and a Gamakatsu round bend number 1. So the number 1 is going to go to the front, so we're simply going to just use our Cuda pliers here, split nose pliers, and we're going to install the number 1 treble hook up front. Yeah, you can already see where I'm going with this. Now we're going to take a number 2 treble hook and simply install it in the middle eyelet here. So again, right now we got a number 1 and a number 2, okay? We're going to leave this one off right now, but I'll get to that in just a little bit. Now listen, here is a very important key. Step number 3 is very important, okay? Very important. Step number 3 is going to take care in eliminating this from happening. I don't want treble hook number 2 to attach to treble hook number 3. So in order for this to not take place, we got to take care of the situation that we got in hand. So basically, I got just a piece of electrical wire. As you can tell, I've split the difference. I've twisted it, made it a little bit smaller, so now I got 2 tracks. The reason I choose this is because it actually gives something that we're going to use here in a little bit, which is epoxy. It actually gives the epoxy something to adhere to. So what we're going to do, we're going to come in, okay? And you can leave a lot of extra tag. We're going to come in and we're going to wrap, not much, but we're going to wrap this around towards the bottom of the eye. So we're not going to the top, we're going to the bottom of the eye, right? So we're going to actually, once we have it in there, we're going to cut off the access guys, this is going to eliminate this front hook from swinging and actually catching your line. Okay, so if your line is coming and you got a line tie right here, a lot of times it might try and get hung, you know, it'll hang around your line. But so once we have the wire in place, we're simply going to take some 5-minute epoxy, take and dab a little bit of 5-minute epoxy around this piece of wire, and that's going to hold it in place, and it's going to keep this treble hook from swinging and catching your front line. So now we're going to do actually the same process to eyelet number 2. So we're just going to take the wire, come through, then we're going to come back through, okay? And basically all we're doing is creating that treble hook to where it can't slide forward, okay? So once we have that in place, we simply trim the excess off, put it in place. Now again, you're going to take 5-minute epoxy and just put a little dab right here to hold this in place. So what this is going to do, it's going to keep this second treble hook from swinging, and it's going to prevent this. It's going to prevent the tangling of the legs. So the importance of this and this is to prevent the tangling of the legs. So again, once you get your wire in place, you simply put 5-minute epoxy here. Be careful not to fill up the hole, no brainer. Put 5-minute epoxy here. That's going to keep it from swinging forward. Now, the last step. This is really unique. The last step is taking a feathered treble hook. Same process, but now we're going to take a piece of heat shrink tube. You're going to cut it about an inch, something like that. Cut about an inch off. Now this is a number 2 feathered hook. Now what we're going to do is we're coming over top. We're going to bring this down below where the hook is at. We got to get down to where we can get to that O-ring. Okay, now we're going to install the feathered hook on the back with a piece of heat shrink tube. Now we're going to take that, spin it around. So now we're going to take the heat shrink tube and pull it up and over. Okay, up and over. We're almost there. Okay, be sure not to go over in between this gap. It's important to not go in that gap. You want some freedom in here so you can actually pull your heat shrink tube up too far. So you're going to take your heat shrink tube, come up there as close as you can, and simply get a lighter. Okay. Alright. Now you're going to ask, what is the purpose of that? Okay, so I'll tell you, when that bass comes up here and he's attacking this from whatever direction he's going, this back hook is better off to be stiff than it is flexible. These are going to have a seat. They're going to be seated correctly the whole time. This one is always going to be swinging free, but what we've done is we've made a stiff harness around it, and when that bass comes up and he pops it, that hook is not freeing out of its way, and it's not getting in the way of this blade. So heat shrink tube is to keep this in place. I like to use a feathered hook, and a number 1, a number 2. Guys, there you have it. I know you're going to catch a lot more bass using this technique. I got a lot more of these tips coming to you. Appreciate you guys subscribing. Comment below. Let me know what you want to see me modify. I got a few things coming down the pipe. I got a buzzbait modification that'll wreck your mind. I got some other shaky head techniques that will wreck your mind. So, guys, subscribe, like, comment below. Appreciate you.